For many years, we've been hearing the words manufacturing, mass production in the fashion industry. But in this video, I'll be making the argument against mass production of Kenyan fashion and African fashion in general. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you haven't met yet, my name is Kaids Alexandro, and if you're looking to grow and maximize your African fashion business, just hit that subscribe button right there. Boosting manufacturing has been presented to us as if that would solve all the problems that we are dealing with when it comes to fashion production in Kenya. We are not considering the fact that a large number of people who produce fashion in Kenya are small businesses. They don't own manufacturing facilities, let alone have access to any of that infrastructure to make mass production even a reality. So the point I'm making today is a case against the mass manufacturing of fashion apparel in Kenya. What I hope to achieve by the end of this video is the mindset shift of how we can all participate in the fashion industry, in the fashion space in Kenya without involving mass producing of singular fashion items. You see, the problem with mass producing fashion items is that you are always anticipating what the market wants. So you're guessing, unless you do some really in-depth research, you're kind of, when it comes to fashion, you kind of have to anticipate what the tastes are going to be in the future, what people will think is fashionable in the future. So this is the difference between the fashion industry and any other type of industry when it comes to the mass production of a product. Another complication that happens in Africa and in Kenya is that Africans really have different tastes, different aesthetics when it comes to regions. Particular fabric might be popular in West Africa and not really in East Africa. So to start with, I want to highlight the problems I see with the mass manufacturing of fashion products in Kenya for the masses. The first, it's too expensive. The cost of mass manufacturing is upfront and very expensive for the regular tailor or regular designer to be able to fund upfront. The supply chain needs to be in place. By supply chain, I mean those systems that you need to have in place, for example, to get from the source of your material all the way to the finished good, and from that finished good being done to being able to be distributed to your clientele. So when you're mass manufacturing, you need to have all those systems in place. And in some cases, manufacturing has a minimum of the amount of units you have to produce. So what happens when you have produced 1,000 units or 1,000 products for your t-shirts, for example. You produced 1,000 of your unique t-shirts and only 500 people come to buy them. And now you're stuck with this extra t-shirts you didn't anticipate being stuck with. That aspect of mass production, having to have a minimum limit where you can only produce 1,000, for example, 1,000 units and above, then it gets a little bit more risky because now you have to anticipate the fact that you might not sell all of your merchandise. The second case against mass manufacturing of fashion items in Kenya is that it's very wasteful and it encourages consumerism. What I mean by wasteful is that the first point I made, manufacturing sometimes requires you to have a minimum amount of units that you want to reproduce. If you don't sell all that merchandise that you just produced, you are stuck with it, and now this is even more products that people really don't need, and you can't really sell them. There's no demand for it, and that's a waste. How do you think we get so much secondhand clothing from outside coming into African countries, coming into even some Asian countries? Most of these clothes come to us as a result of mass production of fast fashion. What fast fashion has done, it has made it cheaper for people to produce trendy garments fast. They don't last that long. People put them on a few times and then that's fashion trend is over and they're like, okay, let's discard this, I'm going to give it to charity, and that ends up in Kenya somewhere. And now in Kenya, you're in Gikomba, you're in Toy Market, and yes, we're giving these clothes a longer life, but then we are also encouraging the more production of such cheap clothing that ends up on our shores, and they end up destroying small businesses, small tailoring and design businesses. This is a long way of saying mass production of apparel in Europe, in America, has led to so much waste in that people are buying more clothes than they need, which ends up being discarded, and they end up in countries like Kenya, which also has the effect of destroying clothing industries in some countries. We can stop this waste by creating clothing that are meant for people, made for a person, a particular person in mind, and it takes to account their measurements, and it takes to account all the things that mass production will not really consider. I think people will have a tendency to wear something longer and keep something longer if it was made just for them, rather than if they bought it as a product of mass production. That's the second reason I don't think mass production will work in Kenya and Africa. We all know that the human body can be different from one person to another. However, this has not been more so evident than it is in Kenya, than it is in Africa. The amount of variation when it comes to body shapes and sizes in Africa it varies so much from one person to another, and I think this will make it so hard for us to be able to mass produce clothing for the masses unless it's made of some sort of elastic. Companies like Vivo Activewear started off with like really elastic, really stretchable fabrics. The shape of it can change, and so that kind of makes it easier for us to produce clothing for the masses. However, if you want to work with a different type of fabric that doesn't stretch like that, it would be really difficult for us to produce clothing for the masses in Africa, just from the sizes, just from how variable the sizes are. And so onto my fourth case against the mass production of African fashion apparel. We borrow a lot from the Western fashion scene. We are inspired, and we live in a global village where things that happen in Europe, things that happen in America, so have some sort of trickle effect, and it comes to Africa and it's a trend and everybody wants to do it. So there's no denying that the fashion industry in Kenya and in Africa in general is influenced by the fashion industry in France, in Italy, in America, in UK, in London. Those fashion industries have been established in what they call like the seasonal collections, where you have spring and summer collection and fall/winter collection, where the clothes that are produced during these seasons, they mirror what's going on when it comes to the weather of these regions. When it comes to Africa, we have hot and wet. We have just dry and wet seasons. That kinda gives us a different sort of problem to solve, right? Like in the Western fashion industry, they're solving the problem of comfortability. You want to be warm in winter and cool in summer, right? So that's what the fashion industry in the West is catering to. In Africa, we don't really necessarily have to dress up or down for the seasonal, but what we dress up for is holidays. So we dress up for Christmas, Easter, Ramadan, Diwali, whoever you go visit your tailor for during that special time of the year, then that's how our fashion calendar really revolves around. There's a reason why they have separated them in two chunks, because it's hard to design something that's new for 5, 6, 7, 8 times, because there are several holidays in a year. So I think for us Africans, it would make sense not to have seasons, because mass production really relies on regular and predictable, cycles. So I think the fact that in Africa we don't have those regular predictable cycles such as seasons that they have in the West, where our cycles are holidays and each one is different, it makes it a little bit harder to mass produce for this particular population. If you've enjoyed this discussion so far, don't forget to give us a thumbs up to, one, encourage me, because I don't want to just be talking to myself here, and two, so that Facebook knows to recommend this content to other people who love African fashion. The fifth, and I think the most important reason or case against the mass production of fashion apparel in Kenya and in Africa is the strong tailoring culture that we have already. There are around 75,000 tailors and design companies, so small businesses in Kenya. This strong tailoring culture employs and sustains so many families. When we start mass producing just a few, we will start cannibalizing our own small businesses in the country. So I think we need to re-examine what the effects of mass production might be on the small businesses in Africa and in Kenya. There is space for everybody. I'm not saying to completely do away with mass production. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is not to look at mass production as the one and sole solution for the African fashion space. I think there's room for everybody to succeed, and there's room for everybody to be able to make a living doing something they love. However, I don't think that selling mass production to tailors or selling mass production to designers as the only way to be successful or to be recognized, I don't think that does anything good for the fashion industry as a whole. I think we should be able to create spaces where everybody is doing their part to kind of move this industry forward, as well as to earn their living and create beautiful things. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I would love to hear your opinion on this discussion. Thank you again for joining me here today. I really appreciate your time. And don't forget to check out these other videos right here for more content on African fashion. Until next time, see ya!